drops Tony Harrison in the ninth round. Um, Tim Tszyu was dominating the fight. I gave Tony Harrison the first 2 rounds, and then from there on, it was just Tim Tszyu all the way up to the stoppage. Tim Tszyu, well, he listened to me when I broke down the fight, how he could win, apply pressure, use precision punching, don't waste punches. Uh, and he basically broke Tony Harrison down. Tony Harrison, the thing with Tony Harrison for most of the fight, he just got a little bit too predictable, where he just was basically trying to jab his way to a victory. He wasn't like trying to go to the body. He wasn't trying to, let off combinations at times. It was just he fought most of the time off the ropes, and I knew that was going to be his Achilles heel. We all knew what was going to happen. It was just a matter of time. And to be honest with you, Tony Harrison, the referee should have called a halt to the fight. When Tony Harrison turned his head against the ropes, that's pretty much mean he's giving up, he's submitting, and the referee should have called a halt to the fight. Tony Harrison, I've said this about Tony Harrison. Tony Harrison just doesn't have a good chin. And that's just the problem. He can box, but he just didn't have a good chin. And then Tony Harrison, you seen earlier in the fight when Tim Tszyu was countering him with shots upstairs to the body, Tony Harrison was just looking like, man, I just don't want none of this. And Tony Harrison just wasn't willing to take risks. At the end of the day, sometimes it is what it is. You got to take a little bit of risk to try to win a fight. And Tony Harrison just was predictable. He just tried to win the fight, trying to jab his way to a victory. Guys like Tim Tszyu, you're going to have to throw more than a jab, where we all know that Charlo is going to throw more than a jab. So now we got the fight that we're going to be intrigued about. Tim Tszyu versus Charlo is going to be a war. It's going to be a war. But I think Charlo has more power than Tszyu. But it'll still be an interesting fight. Like I say, for Tony Harrison, another blown opportunity. Tony Harrison, I'm not going to say it's the end of him getting another title shot. He just going to be one of them dudes. He just going to be a card filler. He just going to be either the second or the third to the main event. Basically, he's just basically going to be an undercard fighter. He's a good fighter, but he just doesn't have a chin. And that's his problem. If you look at my video earlier, I perfectly broke down this fight, how Tony Harrison could win the fight. Tony Harrison didn't throw enough combinations. Tony Harrison should have been using the jab and then going downstairs and then jumping back, resetting, hitting them with combination, turning them, jabbing, confusing Tim Tszyu. And I know people are talking about, well, that was a small ring they fought in. Well, Tim Tszyu was fighting at home. But you got to give Tim Tszyu credit on his performance. That's just basically the bottom line. Tim Tszyu was the better fighter tonight. And, I like Tony Harrison. Tony Harrison is a cool dude. But you have to ask yourself, you look at his losses, all of his losses have came by being stopped. He's been stopped in all of his fights. And he doesn't have Julian Jackson power. Like I said before, I saw a lot of missed opportunity. When I was looking at Tony Harrison, I was like, okay, he should rack him to the body. Tim Tszyu's ribs was wide open on the left side. He should have been using the jab. He tried to get a little closer on the inside. Use the jab. Come in with the high guard. Use the jab. Rack him to the body. Reset. And like I said, Tim Tszyu applied tremendous pressure. And like I said, Charlo is going to be a totally different animal for Tim Tszyu. But Tony Harrison, that's why they put Tony Harrison in the ring with Tim Tszyu, so they can justify and make the fight with Charlo more interesting. And, Tony Harrison, he don't have nothing to feel bad about, but Tszyu was just a better guy. Jarrett Hurd already beat Tony Harrison. Jarrett Hurd stopped Tony Harrison. And the funny thing was, Jarrett Hurd was losing that fight. He was getting outboxed, and like around, I think, the 8th or the 9th round, Um, he caught Tony Harrison, hurt him, and then he dropped. But Tony Harrison was hurt really bad in that fight. Like I said, I'm not going to pile on the referee, but the referee should have stopped the fight when Tony Harrison was defenseless. Tony Harrison, when he got hit with that uppercut, he was pretty much done. He let Tim Tszyu get off like at least 8 to 10 extra punches. Once Tony Harrison turned his head, that is the sign that hey, he's given up. He doesn't want to fight anymore, and the referee should have just called a halt to the fight. Tony Harrison made the standing 8 count, but you could tell Tony Harrison was done. That was just pretty much it. That was pretty much it. And you can make the argument to Tony Harrison, his heart ain't in it no more since he lost his pops. Well, I'm not gonna say Tszyu is a dirty fighter because sometimes you just get caught up in the moment. Like I said, I'll blame it on the referee because he should have just called a halt to the fight. In most cases, when a fighter turns his head against the ropes, he's just saying, "Okay, I've had enough." And then Tony Harrison's corner should have probably stepped in. I already knew it was over for him. Well, I don't. When the thing is with Tony Harrison, he gonna have a very, very, very long flight back to Detroit. You talking about maybe I don't know if it's a direct flight, but if it's a direct flight, he gonna be on an airplane for at least 12 to 13 hours. You know, that's gonna be a very long flight, and then he gonna have to evaluate. Hey, man, do I want to continue to keep doing this? Uh, that last man, the last 10 seconds up to that fight, he took a lot of punishment. And then when you see somebody basically just quit, because like I said, he pretty much quit. But I can't blame him. I'm not gonna sit up there and pile on Tony Harrison because he quit. He was just taking a lot of punishment. Ten Tszyu proved his toughness. Now, like I said, what he did to Tony Harrison doesn't necessarily equal that same type of punishment to Charlo. Charlo is gonna punch back, and Charlo has an arsenal in his offense. Charlo can go upstairs, downstairs. He can jab. He can rack to the body. I mean, for real. He's not going to sit up there and just let Tszyu like keep him up against the ropes. And then keep in mind, he is undisputed. So more than likely in negotiations, it'll be in his favor. Oh yeah, I would let Tony Harrison train me in a heartbeat. If I would let him train me, but as far as him like fighting Tony Harrison, I mean, we can all admit Tony Harrison just doesn't have much of a chin. He don't got a good chin. I mean, it's him, and then it's just him, and then it's Amir Khan. Um, I've always thought Tony Harrison was chinny in it, and based off what I saw tonight, my point was proven. If you look at the previous video, I broke down how Tony Harrison could win this fight, and I broke down how Tszyu could win this fight. And Tszyu did exactly what I said he needed to do. Tszyu doesn't like to waste punches. That's what he. Tszyu is not going to come up there and throw a whole bunch of meaningless punches and try to win rounds off activity. When he throws a punch and lands, he means it. It has meaning to it. That's how he tallies up and wins rounds convincingly. Because when he lands a punch, he lands a punch. And I mean, Tszyu was using great counters. He was using good body shots. Um, like I said, he's a fighter that fights off timing. And he know how Tim Tszyu got good timing and he can count. Tim Tszyu could pretty much he could do anything because he can counter, he can initiate offense. At the end of the day, doesn't have the best defense in the world. You can land some shots off of him. Like I said, his body was wide open, and I think Charlo is gonna see that, and I think Charlo is gonna watch that fight. But now, of course, Charlo ain't gonna tell you exactly what he sees because he don't want Tim Tszyu to watch the rebroadcast of the fight and be like, okay, well, we need to adjust this and fix this. But I'm pretty sure Charlo saw exactly what I saw. Guys like Tszyu, you need to establish a body attack for the first 3 to 4 rounds, then start going upstairs. If he had started like early, like focusing on the body, using a body attack along, mixing it up with the jab, then who knows what would have happened. Like I said before, Tony Harris's Achilles heel was spending too much time up against the ropes. And I think Tim Tszyu knew that moment was going to come where he was like, okay, he just using the jab. Okay, well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to counter his jab with a jab. Okay, and when he come with the jab, I'm going to come with an uppercut, or I'm going to counter him with a lead right. That's all Tim Tszyu was doing. When he was like coming with that jab, he was like, okay, I'm going to just counter him. Or I'm gonna counter his jab with my jab, or I'm gonna counter his jab with a lead right. And then I'm going to go downstairs to the body. But yeah, man, yeah, I feel bad for the homie Tony Harrison. But that's going to be a long, you guys got to understand something. He in Australia. So it's already Sunday out there. He going to have, when I say he going to have a very long flight, thinking about what happened. Tim Tszyu was using everything. He was using the hook. He was using the lead right. I like that right he had to the top of the head. And the hook paid big dividends. I was just like, dang. I was like, I don't want to say nothing. I don't want to say nothing because I don't want this to start a totally different debate. But I seen some real good precision, punching. Like I said, picking your spots, man. So I was impressed with what I saw with Tim Tszyu. But at the end of the day, Tony Harrison ain't Charlo. Charlo is gonna be a totally different fight. Now, here's I'm not gonna talk all speculation or whatever. I think now, based off the fact that people seen what Tim Tszyu brought to the table, I think now maybe this time around, I think Charlo could maybe sell some tickets. Because nobody and, yeah, I said it. I don't care. Yeah, I said it. Maybe this time they'll have it at a venue. Maybe this time Charlo could actually get people to come see him fight, because he's turned off a lot of people just with his mouth and his horrible attitude. But now people's looking at Tim Tszyu, seeing based off how he fight, they feel like, okay, well, maybe he could give Charlo a run for his